And
But let's try to.
oh yeah, well, I
Senate,
love
please come to order.
I'm good on that for coming through with all our hotels.
Before we start our day, we will have a moment of silence in lieu of devotionals. Wonderful, thank you. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we have two bills for referral under Rule 31. The first being H801, affecting the revenues of the state, will be referred to the Committee of Finance. The other being S55, affecting the expenditures of the state, will be referred to the Committee on Appropriations. That brings us to the orders of the day. Our first order of business, I believe, is S209, an act relating to prohibiting unserialized firearms and unserialized firearms frames and receivers and to juvenile offenses in the criminal division. It'd be at this time that I'd ask if there are any amendments. My understanding is there is. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. As this is being handed out, I'll just remind senators, during the discussion yesterday, there were a couple of questions about section C1 in the bill. And just to remind you, there were 3 prohibitions and a temporary provision to carve out penalties if someone was on the way to serializing the weapon. And those were points very well taken. And I promised an amendment to fix that. And our alleged counsel, Eric Fitzpatrick, has drafted this amendment to do so. So you will see that in C1, I believe it was the senator from Caledonia noted that there was a problem in the timing, that we were requiring a serial number to be on the weapon as it came out of a 3D printer, which would not be the case. So this makes it clear in time, I believe, that once printed, the weapon would need to be imprinted, and the manufacturer of that weapon would need to cause that to happen. And then below, the senator from Washington, Senator Kirkwood, noted that there was a disconnect between the language in the previous 2 prohibitions and the third. So what we've done is to mimic the language in the previous 2. So all 3 now have a temporary carve out if you are on your way to get the firearm imprinted with a serial number. So you'll see that in 2B at the bottom. Temporary possession or transfer of a firearm or frame or receiver of a firearm for the purpose of having it imprinted carves you out from the penalties. So, Mr. President, I believe that answers both questions and makes the bill stronger. And I would hope the body would agree. Thank you. Oh, by the way, it was supported 4-1-0 out of the committee.
So the question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the senator from Chittenden Central? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have further amended the bill as offered by the senator from Chittenden Central. Are there any other amendments to be offered before third reading? Seeing none, please listen to the third reading of the bill.
S209, an act relating to prohibiting unserialized firearms and unserialized firearms frames and receivers and to juvenile offenses in the criminal division.
Now you've heard the third reading of the bill. The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed S209. We now have up for third reading consideration H516, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the city of Essex Junction. Are there any amendments before third reading? Seeing none, please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H516, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the city of Essex Junction.
Now you've heard the third reading of the bill. Question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have passed H516. We now have up for consideration, second reading, H469. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 469, an act relating to remote and electronic processes for executing an advance directive.
Now you've heard the second reading of the bill. For the report from the Committee on Health and Welfare, the Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is about completing an advanced directive, and the improvements that are being made to the process for completing an advanced directive have come to us as a result of our experience with COVID. Everyone has the right to make their own healthcare decisions, and an advanced directive ensures that end-of-life and critical healthcare decisions, our own decisions, will be honored. When we're incapacitated, we still want our own perspective and our own healthcare wishes be known. So do we want to have a breathing tube or a ventilator for a long or short time? So these are just some of the questions that we might consider when we put together an advanced directive. What limitations of treatment would we want when we are incapable of communicating with caregivers or doctors or family? The advanced directive is a document that allows us to make our wishes known before we are incapacitated. We can do it at any time. Many of us in this room already have advanced directives, and I did bring along a copy of an advanced directive should anyone wish to look at it. It's not filled out. So a person known as the principal can name an agent, someone who knows the principal well, a spouse, child, a close friend. Naming an agent means that the agent can follow the principal's wishes when the principal is hospitalized or otherwise incapacitated. Current statute has very prescriptive guidelines for how advanced directives are used. So in other words, you must have 2 witnesses, you must have a clinician signing off on your advanced directive. In addition, the agent signs on to the advanced directive. So there's communication between those and among those folks. Having witnesses ensures that the individual is making decisions within the directive without duress, making those decisions freely. So I'm going to go through the bill briefly. The additions and changes that are in the advanced directive process really come to us as a result of our COVID, where COVID has highlighted the need for remote witnesses. People couldn't get together during COVID quite a bit. It also allows for digital signatures on advanced directives. So that is a result of our isolation and need to use computer technology in completing these forms. So if you look at section 1 on pages 1 and 2, that section adds 2 new definitions into the chapter, digital signature, and you'll see that there are conditions for ensuring that the digital signature is safeguarded and secure. Remote witness is also a new definition, as defined as a witness who's not physically present when a principal signs an advanced directive. Section 2, which begins on page 2, this section makes permanent the ability to have one or both witnesses to a principal signing of an advanced directive be remote. So the witnesses to the advanced directive itself, and the witnesses are not family, they're not close friends, they are independent folks who can attest that you are not under duress when you're signing your advanced directive. The witness can, through live interactive audio-visual connection or by telephone, attest to the advanced directive. On page 3 through 6, the bill also makes permanent the ability to have a remote explanation from the neutral individual who must explain the nature and effective effect of an advanced directive to a principal. So these are for folks in hospitals and long-term care facilities. There's a slightly different process where the witness must be, someone's in a hospital, makes out an advanced directive while they're going into a hospital or in a hospital, while they're going into a long-term care facility or in that facility. They must have a witness who is an ombudsman, an attorney, a clinician, someone who is trained to understand the decisions that are being put in the directive. So the explainer is someone who explains what is happening with, that the person understands what they're doing with the advanced directive. And the explainer then can be, provide that explanation live, physical presence, interactive, audio-visual connection, or by telephone. It also allows the explainer to use a digital signature that we indicated earlier. Section 3 begins on page 6, and this is what's known as the Ulysses Clause, and our Ledge Council was very creative in explaining the Ulysses Clause, and we'll do that at some point, not today. There's had a great photo of Ulysses tied to the mast, but that's another story. The Ulysses Clause is an optional provision that is in advanced directives, but it does require special attention because what it does, and it is in existing law, this doesn't add the Ulysses Clause. It's in the event that the principal lacks capacity. In the advanced directive, the principal, the person who's written the advanced directive, can allow for the agent to make decisions, even if the principal says, please don't do that. So if you filled out your Ulysses Clause, then the principal would say, no matter what I say, when I'm incapacitated, don't listen to me. The agent will make the decision on my behalf. That's pretty tough. So there's actually a link to Department of Mental Health where this might come up, where someone with a mental illness who has an episode and might during incapacitation say, don't give me that medication. But if they have a Ulysses Clause that said, don't listen to me, please give me the medication, the agent can override that principle. So it's an interesting part of the advanced directive. As I said, it is not a required section, but some folks do use it. Current law requires additional steps to execute a Ulysses Clause, including that the clinician has to sign off it and affirm that the principal appeared to understand the benefits and risks and alternatives to the healthcare being authorized or rejected in the provision. So you can actually define which treatment you want to have within the Ulysses Clause. Doesn't have to be everything, right? Just be one thing. Beside the clinician signing off, then there's also a neutral individual who must sign a statement affirming that they explained the nature and effect of the Ulysses Clause to the principal, and the principal appeared to understand it and be free of duress or undue influence. And the neutral individual in this case, which is referenced on page 8, it's referenced to go back to another page on page 8. But the explainer, again, is like a clergyman or an ombudsman or someone who works in the hospital or facility that has been trained to explain this. The bill would require that the first time a principal executes a Ulysses Clause, the clinician and the explainer must be physically present in the same location as the principal. They don't have to be there together, but they do have to at least interact with the individual. The bill would specify that if the principal later executes a new advanced directive containing a Ulysses Clause, if they go back and redo it, the clinician and the explainer don't have to be physically present in the same location as the principal, but they do provide an assessment and they do provide the explanation through live interactive audio-visual connection, but not telephone, so it has to be some visual presence. And the bill allows for the principal and agent, the clinician, and the explainer all to use electronic signatures. So the things that I'm talking about now are the remote witnessing and the electronic signatures were things that were put into statute during COVID. Our committee actually did that work and put it into statute, and it started out in February 2020. It's hard to remember that, but we were all isolated. And then it went on to June 2020, and then we renewed it. And then it went to March 31st, 2024, which is about a month away. And so now this bill is making those changes for remote witnessing, remote explanation, and electronic signatures, is making those provisions as part of the program, the advanced directive process. And so that one of the reasons, as you can see, this is has an H in front of it. One of the reasons that our committee wants this bill to be passed is time is of the essence. So, Mr. President, that is our report, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Now you've heard the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? Senator from Washington.
May I inquire of the reporter of the bill?
Senator from Chittenden Southeast is interrogated as a reporter of the bill.
Thank you. I am supportive of this. I just have a question. I really appreciate that throughout it indicates live interactive audio video connections. Did your committee talk about that as like, did the committee think that that would be a sufficient way to deter the occurrence of AI deepfakes? Not that I think that that's necessarily a risk for this, but anytime that we are considering remote interactions as certifying things, I just want to raise that as an issue that I think we need to be at least starting to think about.
Right, so if it's the clinician, it's usually I'm not saying patient, but the principal's clinician, someone that they know. So that would be the conversation with them. The explainer is someone who is part of a hospital or clergy or part of the extended living facility, nursing home, and is trained to do this. I think it would be difficult to have a replacement person for that. We didn't talk about the possibility of subterfuge. It's always a possibility. I don't know what we could put in here that would prevent it. Certainly the witnesses that the individual has were in developing the advanced directive. The witnesses are people that you might know, but are not family and close friends. So they would be people that you would select to witness this, but it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have a stranger off the street necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be more difficult to AI.
Right. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I inquired the report of the bill. Mr. President, I'd like to know more about why and how this would work with a telephone. Not so worried about the video, because you're at least seeing somebody, but you're by telephone. And frankly, today, I have no idea who the heck I'm talking to when I'm on the phone. Could be whoever they say they are, but it doesn't necessarily mean they are. And I'm concerned that this allows these types of decisions to be made by telephone, witnessed by telephone.
So the
I
witness.
just had experience, obviously, going through advanced directives and had to change one because there was a mistake in an earlier one, and et cetera. And it's not easy, but you want to make sure you got it right.
So the telephonic use, if you look in section 2, is used for explanation for the explainer. Again, this is someone who's a trained attorney, an ombudsman or other, so there'd have to be a specific telephone number being utilized.
To tell me
That
that they're
person.
really there.
If you don't recognize the voice, or the clinician or the family doesn't recognize the voice in that case, well, then you may have a problem, but we have not heard, we heard from the Vermont Ethics Network that there's been interest in advanced directives since COVID. But we did not hear about any nefarious activity, and I'm not sure what the goal or the benefit would be for someone witnessing irresponsibly. So that,
I'm not sure either, Mr.
Yeah.
President. I'm just concerned that telephones are not necessarily reliable.
may not be.
Thank you, Mr. President. Telephones may not be reliable.
Question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Senator from Windsor,
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the reporter?
Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
This
in charge.
is not so much a request for information as a request for verification of my present understanding. My understanding is that under our existing end-of-life choice bill or law regarding medically hastened death under specified circumstances, that the medication must be self-administered. Could the reporter tell me if I'm correct in that?
So yes, that's true. This is not at all related to that end of life program.
And that being the case, that the Ulysses clause would not implicate the medical assistance in dying.
So the decision for the Ulysses clause is clearly up to the individual writing their advanced directive. And if they say, regardless of what I say, I don't want to utilize the end of life program, or I do want to use it, or I don't, whatever they put in about it, the agent would represent what the person wanted. If the individual, this is for an individual without capacity, remember that. So the Ulysses clause is for an individual without capacity. And all of this is for folks without capacity. If the principal has capacity and the agent has capacity, the principal might ask to change their Ulysses clause. I can't answer your question, Mr. President. It's a situational issue. And certainly the clause can be changed at any time. The individual can change their mind and they can go through the process of doing what the senator from Bennington had to do, and that is to redo their whole advance directive.
I thank the reporter. Mr. President, perhaps we can get more clarity between now and third reading. My understanding is that it's simpler than that, that if the principal changes his or her mind, they would not self-administer.
So let me answer
Well,
that, Mr. President,
I
if you
believe-
don't mind.
If I might,
Want me to
for
or
a moment,
not?
you don't actually have the floor. If the senator from
I
Windsor
would yield-
chooses
I
to
would
be
yield to
finished
the-
or interrogate, if you could just, if you're done, you can sit and I would recognize the senator. If you have a question for the senator, then you could continue an interrogation.
Well, I've asked my question and given my answer, so I will, I'll be done. Yield to the chair.
Senator from Chittenden Southeast, if you wish.
No, I'm
now
trying
is
to
it.
remember the question. It sounded like, let me see if I get this right, Mr. President. It sounded like if the person has a Ulysses clause, can the person do something different from the Ulysses clause with respect to end of life? I'm not sure I'm hearing the question properly. The Ulysses clause can be changed at any time by the principal when they have capacity, because the clinician will determine that they have capacity to do that and haven't done it under duress. End of life choices is a different program. So the individual could clearly state, don't ever give me medication to end my life. That's it. I can't, I don't know what else to say. They can change the Ulysses Clause. They can change the advanced directive. Oh, perhaps we can confer outside of the chamber, Mr. President.
Questions, Senator from Addison?
Mr. President, I just wanted to, as a member of the Committee of Jurisdiction, wanted to add a couple things to what the reporter of the bill has already said with the last two questions. And I don't know if this will ease the mind of the senator from Bennington who asked about the telephonic remote part of remote witnessing for telephonic. That does not apply to the Ulysses Clause part of this. For the Ulysses Clause, the first execution has to be in person. It has to be in person. And then the second one has to be by, if it is remote, it has to be by audio visual connection. So for the Ulysses Clause portion, at least, there is not a telephone option. So that might help a little bit. The telephone option is only for the basic advanced directive, but not the Ulysses Clause. And in terms of the end of life choices conversation, I don't have the law in front of me for that, but my recollection of that whole process, having reported a bill on it a couple of years ago, is that if somebody is not considered competent to make a decision, they would not be able to execute the provisions of our death with dignity or medical aid in dying law. So a healthcare professional has to say that they are competent to make the decision. And the Ulysses Clause is essentially the opposite, that you are not necessarily competent to make the decision. And so somebody who is the sort of recipient of the use of a Ulysses Clause, for lack of a better word, would not be able to use medical aid in dying because they would not be considered competent to make that decision. And we certainly can check that with legal counsel, but I think that there's not a conflict between the two of them because of the requirements for the state of mind someone must be in order to use the medical aid in dying. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden
Yeah,
Southeast.
thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clarify that when we talk about these advanced directives or we talk about end-of-life choices, we're talking about capacity. We're not talking about competency. They're two different things, so just to clarify. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it. You've ordered third reading of H 469. That completes the orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until tomorrow, March 1st at 11:30 a.m.
I believe what I heard you just say is actually that we would be adjourning the senator. Is it pending announcements that the senator moves that the Senate stands adjourned until 10:20 on Friday, March 1st, because we have to join for a general assembly.
Precisely. Thank you.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Addison.
Senate Natural Resources and Energy will meet at 9 a.m.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet 10 minutes after the fall of Dallas.
Senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Education will meet 15 minutes after the vote.
Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Government Operations will meet at 1:45.
Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate institutions will meet 15 minutes after the fall of Gallup.
Senator from Caledonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. We normally don't announce this, but Senate Appropriations will meet immediately after the fall. 1:30.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the Senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand adjournment until Friday, March 1st at 10:20 a.m. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand adjournment until Friday, March 1st at 10:20.